Welcome in Karibuni to Aroma of Zanzibar. Today I'm going to share with you how I'm going to put together this semi-nude cake. And I've got my turning board here and this little cloth. You can use a towel if you want. This is to just prevent your cake from slipping. And I've got two offset spatulas and a knife. And you can use any of these tools to smooth the cake. And for my tall cakes, I usually use this rectangle triangle ruler. And so I've got my cakes here. They are frozen. They were frozen. I froze them overnight. I do sometimes 6 hours or 8 hours. It depends. And especially for cakes like this is a very light and smooth cake, and it's got a lot of crumbs. So it's necessary to freeze it because it's easy to work with. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of crumbs everywhere. Okay, so I'm just gonna do that. Okay, I froze it. So now I'm going to level my cake. This is not the best right way to tort the cake, but if you noticed, if you watched my last video when I shared the recipe, I sliced the dome to show you all how the cake looked like. So it's one side level and one side is not level. So I've got my knife in one level just to remove the excess. So it's just straight on level. It's not turning or it's not slant. Okay, so it's just straight, so that way I get my cake to level. Okay, and I'm going to do the same for the rest of the cakes. Okay, rest of the layers rather. Okay, so now I'm spraying my cake with the sugar syrup. I got this technique from Beccarella. I read it in her blog and I really fell in love with it because it keeps you in control not to put too much sugar syrup in your cake. You can use a brush. That's what I used to use, but now I've switched to this technique and it's nice. And for my buttercream, I have also learned to, and I've been working on this and I think I like it this way, where I put my buttercream in the bag, in the pastry bag, or a plastic Ziploc bag if you have, rather than using a bowl and using a spatula, because this way, first of all, it's one level, and then it's also it prevents you from having crumbs, adding crumbs into a clean buttercream. So this way it's nice. That's my preference. Okay, and then I'm adding some blueberry compote here. It's something that I just had it and I wanted to make use of it. But if you want a recipe, I do have the recipe as a sauce that was linked together with my, pancakes. Okay, my buttermilk pancakes, and I did the blueberry sauce. So it's the same thing basically. And but you don't have to add anything to it. This cake is very light and it's very sweet. It requires very, very minimum buttercream. That's why I chose this design to do a nude cake because, like I say, it doesn't need so much, to be added to it. Okay, so now we are moving to working on our second layer, going to the third layer. Now, if you notice, I do have 4 layers of cake here, or we are still on the second, but I'm just letting you know ahead in advance. And the recipe that I have for the cake, it's only 3 layers. I kept one layer purposely because to use it for this purpose, because I love my cakes to be nice and tall. They really look beautiful and sexy. So that's about it. But you can work with 3 layers if you want. It's all right. It all depends on what you like and what you're looking for. Okay. So now if you notice, there's a lot of gap between my cakes and the buttercream. Usually I would fill it up, but today I don't want to fill them up because this cake, like I said, it's too sweet, so I don't want to add too much buttercream. So I'm just going to remove all the excess that I have. Okay, but you don't have to do what I'm going to be doing next. That's again, it's my preference and what I'm looking for. Okay, so yeah, what was I gonna say? Yeah, so I got my 4th layer going in there, and always try and use the bottom facing down so that you get the straight edges when you do your cake. Okay, when it's final, it looks really nice. So now I'm going to wrap this cake and freeze it. Okay, and like I say, don't get confused. You don't have to do the second step that I'm doing. So for that matter, then you won't need to freeze the cake. Normally after this part, I would keep my cake in the fridge, to chill for about 30 minutes before I work on it again. Okay, so don't get confused and think that you have to freeze the cake. I will show you why I'm freezing the cake on my next step. Okay, so, and I like to wrap it up because I got other food in the freezer, so I don't want the smell of the food to get into my cake. Okay, but if you have a freezer that's just for cakes, then I guess it's okay. All right, so it's just going to the freezer for about 30 minutes. So now it's ready, and I'm taking it out. So I'm going to trim the excess. They're a little bit bulging excess of the cake. Okay, so I'm just positioning my knife straight downwards. Okay, I'm not slanting the knife or positioning it in any direction or adding any extra force to the knife other than just the motion, my movements to go downwards, just to remove the little excess. And this also removes if your cake is too dark, too brown, or maybe get about it. Actually, you would need to do this if it's burnt on the sides. I mean, not burnt. I mean, if it's too brown, almost burning, then you would need to do this step. Okay, so I'm just trimming off the excess so that my cake is nice, the perfect round shape. So after I was done, what I'm doing is I'm trimming off the board too, because I don't want my board to show. I would keep the board if I'm going to put a border on my cake, then I don't mind the border to show because I'm going to cover it with a border. Or if I'm using a bigger board, which usually it's covered, then of course I won't be doing this. But for this cake, I just want to put the cake straight into the cake stand, so I'm trimming off the excess of the cake board. And I've done that for my 6-inch as well, which will come later. Okay, so this is an 8-inch. Yes. All right. So sorry, I forgot to show you all the buttercream at the bottom. Okay, so now I'm putting my buttercream. Now at this point you can decide how much buttercream you want to put, if you want to make it just naked cake or you want to make it semi-naked cake. I want mine semi-naked cake because I want to cover the cake so it stays moist. I don't want my cake to be dry. Now if you decide to do just a nude cake, then you may need to brush in some apricot jam, or maybe what do you call honey, so that your cake does not become dry. Okay, so we're just removing the excess. Okay, and you can do this as many times as you want till you get the perfect look that you're looking for. Okay, so now I'm just doing the top. And yeah, so this is semi-nude, as you can see. And if you want it lesser, then you can remove the buttercream and make it look lesser. But make it look neat. This is the best part of these cakes. I think the basic cakes should have started with this, because this is a trend now. I mean, it's been there, but I think this year it's really, really popular. Okay, so we're just removing the excess. And when you remove the excess, you automatically make a lip on the top, which is easy to clean your edges at the top. So when you have a lip, you just slide your spatula towards you. Okay, I'm doing sideways because I'm trying to get you guys to see, because that's where my camera is. Okay, so there is a need to go for one more round. Like I say, you can do as many times as you want or as less as you want, just to get the cake the way you want it to look. Okay, now I'm going to do the flowers, and this is another important part when you're using fresh flowers. Now you can do fruits over there, you don't have to do flowers, but I want to do flowers today. And unfortunately, I did not get good flowers. Okay, so the flowers, we have to be very careful when we're using fresh flowers because there are a lot of chemicals that are sprayed on these flowers, and we don't want them to be in contact with a cake because it's not food safe. Okay, and like my roses, I bought them like 3 days ago, so I use straws to put my flowers in. I got some thin straws and I've got some thick straws, and so you just want to put it inside, whatever flower you want. And okay, or sometimes if you don't have the straws, you can use the foil, the aluminum foil. And they also do have the tubes, the fresh flower tubes. You get them in the market. I have them too, but then they're too big. I've noticed they make such a big hole in my cake and it looks very ugly before you slice it. So I'm wrapping here with a saran paper all the way till down. The parts that you really don't want, you have to be very careful with, is the stem, because that's where all the chemicals go. Like for me, I bought my flowers 3 days ago and I went on YouTube to find out how I can keep them fresh, and it says to soak them in bleach and baking soda. So I don't want that to go into my food. And they did stay fresh. Actually, 4 days I kept them. Okay, so I make sure the stem is well covered before it gets into the cake. Okay, so here I'm going to put a mark so that I make sure that my next layer is on the right position. I mean, if you want it at the center, you want it on the side, however you want. And then I'm going to use the straws. These are nice McDonald's straws that I sometimes use, and I like to use these big ones too. Okay, the reason why we do this is you don't want the cake that you're going to put on top to collapse into the cake at the bottom. Okay, so the straws and the board that I'm going to put is what it's going to hold the weight. Okay, so the cake is frozen, so it's hard to remove the straws. So I got the mark there. If you want, sometimes I do that, just do one straw and then mark the length and then cut all of them the same length and just put them in. And this is another important part. Sometimes if you don't have your straws or whatever you're using, they have the wooden dowels too, but I don't like to use those because sometimes, actually not sometimes, all the time, I can never cut them properly. I can never get them right. So I prefer to use the straws. Now, if you don't have these on the same length, your cake is not going to be stable. And not sometimes, it has happened to me maybe 3 times where my cake was leaning because my supporting straws, paneling, this is called paneling, were not even. Okay, so they have to be even. This is very important because your cake will not, other than slanting, leaning, it's not going to be stable too. Okay, because this is the main support that you're going to be using for this purpose here. Okay, the next time I'll show you another type of support that I use if you have to transport the cake the way it is. Okay, then we're going to cover this on with a buttercream. Okay, then what I like to do is I like to put a parchment paper there. So when I put my second cake, this is the same recipe, but I did not add the blueberry inside. Okay, so it's going to go on a parchment paper. So when you're taking your cake out to slice it, you are not taking a bunch of buttercream with it underneath. Okay, so that's it. And now I'm going to put the flowers. As you can see, they're all in the straw, and I'm just going to position them. Now, the funny thing here, I have to tell you, I did the flowers. I didn't like them much, but I thought they would look good because I didn't have a choice, okay, of the flowers that were in the store. So, and I really wanted to do this cake that week. Okay, so after I did that, I took a picture. This is another thing that I learned from another blogger. And they say, like, take a picture of your cake, of your food, and see how it looks. And then you can make changes. And that's what happened. I took a picture of this cake and I did not like it. So I decided to remove the rest of the flowers and keep only the red roses. And I think it looks much better that way, because those flowers were not so good looking, and my cake is really, really nice and sexy. Well, I have been talking for the last 15 minutes. So thank you so much. For more recipes, please visit me at Aroma of Zanzibar, and please don't forget to watch all the series for complete of this.